All right, how to get the important shit done.
All right.
Marty.
Hey, all right. I'll introduce myself again. Well, hi, good morning. My name is Marty. And I'm the speaker of the day, and this is a big accomplishment for me to be up here. I haven't done anything like this, so I'm very excited. What I'm going to talk about, the name of my talk is How to Get the Important Shit Done. And that's a great, very catchy title, I thought. I do want to say that what we're going to talk about is what's important. And honestly, I feel if something is important, it's not shit. It's like what your life is made out of. And that's what we're going to talk about is what is important, and then some tips on how to get those important things done. The research that I put into this, is a lot of the story of my life and a lot of lessons learned the hard way, and a lot of lessons gained and a lot of behaviors changed. And so this is how I figured out a better way to live my life. And I get to talk about this, and hopefully there's something that you will find in it that has some helpful value to you. I'm going to turn my timer on just so that I don't run too long, because I could do that. Okay. So this first slide is what I want to talk about. This is the story of, this is the graph of my life. And through most of my life, from about the age of puberty until sometime in my 40s, life was, I had a lot of depression in my life. And it was a very dark place. And it was a hard thing to do to focus on building a valuable future, or a future that I value. And at some point, I hit an inflection point, and I changed it not that long ago. And so what I'm going to talk about is that inflection point. How could a person go from depressed and having a rough time of things and having a hard time conceiving of a valuable future to feeling like life is an awesome thing and worth investing in and having a future? So I want to talk about first what's important. And I did a lot of research to try to figure out what's important as I flailed around feeling like life was unimportant. And I came across two really helpful concepts. The first, and so what's important? Oh, that's my slide. What's important? I haven't seen these slides yet. So. Austin put these together for me, which I really am grateful for. That's going to be a biggest surprise to me. What's important? I think that it's a very fun way to look at evaluating importance of the things that you're doing in your life is to think of your life in three phases. The past, the present you that's here in this room that decided to be here, that's making a decision to be here. The future you that you're going to be in 5 years, or 10 years, or 2 years, or at some time 30, 40 years. And then, let's see, the past you, who is, that's the past me. And this is the person who I was entrusting to set me up for the rest of my life. And as enjoyable as parts of it were, I would really wish I could go back in time and have a talk with that person and have a little bit of a discussion about what you could be doing now that's going to help you become a better, more fulfilled person in the future. This was on a motorcycle trip around the country that my parents didn't know I was on back when I dropped out of college. So I learned a lot from that. So if you think of your life in three phases, what's important is what's going to affect the person that you're going to become. And you want to leave that person, which is going to be you, set up as well as you can. And if you look back at your past, you could say, did I set myself up as well as I could to get to this point in my life? And if you have, I mean, congratulations, you got to the end of this talk already. But if you look back and you say, you know, there were things I wish I had done better, there are relationships I wish that I had protected better, or I wish I had been more of a better steward with my money or my health or whatever. That's what we're here to talk about, is how you now can set yourself up in the future. So that's an interesting concept, and I think another great concept is, I read a book by Matthew Kelly called The Rhythm of Life, and he introduced the concept to me of just simply becoming the best version of yourself that you can be. And I think we're all familiar with that concept. It's put around a lot in social media kind of things now, but when I first read that back, 10, 15 years ago, I was like, wow, that might be enough. At least it's worth a try. Like, it's worth a try. I don't know if that's going to be the solution. I don't know if that's going to give me the meaning in life, but it's worth a try. Just to try to make myself today just a little bit better, to live just a little bit more earnestly. And I find that these two concepts are great. So thinking about your life in 3 phases and just working on becoming the best version of yourself is enough for me to find meaning in my life. What is important? When you read through the literature of what's important, it always seems to come down to the same things. It comes down to leaving health. You want to make sure that you're leaving future you set up as well as you can. If I had realized this when I was that guy on the motorcycle, I would have taken better care of my teeth. I wish I had left myself a little bit better in that way. I mean, to leave yourself healthy in the future means some discipline now today, but the benefits and payoff and your energy and your mood and your lifespan and your quality of life for your lifespan, you're going to really appreciate that you did those things for yourself. Good health fights with anxiety, it fights depression, all of that. Another thing that I should have paid a little bit more attention to back in the day is my financial strength. Like, I just thought that when you graduated from college, you just got a job and you lived a middle-class life. Like, I just thought that was the way that it worked. And so I didn't pay much attention to my grades or what I was studying. And when you get out of school, that doesn't really work that way. And I do wish that I had invested something more in some job skills that would be a little more transferable, a little more desirable. And another thing I want to say about financial strength is I work and I know a lot of very poor people. And if you're here in this room, you're probably doing okay in your life. You're going to work, you have money. A car repair hopefully isn't a devastating thing to you, but I do know plenty of people who are making a choice every month, the rent or the car insurance. And then it's always got to be the rent. And so the car insurance goes, the car gets in an accident. It just creates a whole spiral of problems. And having financial strength as a liberal-minded person, I think at one point in time I thought, well, that's kind of bougie, and that's kind of like, I don't want to be the man, I want to be counter the man. But being able to take care of yourself pays off with less stress in your life. You can have better marriages and better relationships if your finances are in order. It gives you more options in life. It gives you the freedom to be generous. Like, you can make a big donation to Sunday Assembly if you are wise with your money. And we would encourage that. And an ability to plan for the future. And I want to say, everybody knows it, but money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys us a lot of the things that we can use to increase our happiness. It's how you pay for your education. It's how strength is a really important way to leave yourself set up in the future. Social ties. Does this guy look familiar to anybody here? There is, Harvard did an 80, it's still running, so it's probably 85-year social study. Harvard, and this guy is on, he's got a TED Talk. It's about 12 and a half minutes long. If you just look up Harvard 80-year study, you'll spend 12 valuable minutes. They study for 80 years, like 500 guys from poor neighborhoods and from wealthy neighborhoods, and they tracked them for their whole entire life. It took 4 study directors over the course of this study. It ran so long it outlived people's careers. And they tracked these guys, and every 2 years they would meet with them and talk to them about their medical records and their financial records and their health and their satisfaction in life. And in Harvard's 80-year study, the conclusion that this guy right here states very simply is relationships are what's good for us. If you look at people at the end of their life in their 80s and they want to predict who's going to have the longest, healthiest life, they go back at age 50 and they weeded out all the different characteristics, and satisfaction in relationships correlates directly to longevity and happiness in your lifespan. And so I think that the point of that study is that you can't underestimate the value, like I think probably more than your physical health, which is so important to have, and a financial health, which is so important to have. You need to have your social networks in order. You know, I would have made sure, realizing that I was kinder to people along the way, or that I was a more reliable friend to people along the way. You know, but here we are now, so we're learning and moving forward. But this video is great. I totally recommend Harvard's 8-year study. Take care of your relationships. The last important thing, I just added this idea recently, is politics. Like, I never really thought, and it never really came up in the literature, that being politically active would be important for your quality of life. And probably a lot of groups that have fought for their own social and civil rights are already tuned into this. Maybe I'm coming a little late to the party, but I just realized that the good things, there are people who want to take the good things away. There are people who we need to stand up to them, and by standing up politically, we're creating a world that we're going to inherit ourselves, and our families are going to inherit, and our friends are going to inherit. And I think that it's imperative to have a political point of view and take a political stand and make your voice heard. I think everybody in this room is a good, quality, high character person. That's what brings us here. And that is, turns out, a political thing to be. So I recommend everybody pay attention to the politics and help create the world that we're going to all be living in. So that's what I think the important things turn out to be: your health, a little financial stability, your family and friendship relationships. Being here in this room is part of that, and then creating a good society for other people and yourself to live in. So the next section I want to talk about after what's important is, well, how do we get it done? Because there's a big difference between knowing what you should do, or you ought to do, or you could do, or how you could benefit yourself. Like, there's a big difference between that and actually doing it. You know, we call those New Year's resolutions sometimes. People try those, they last for a couple of weeks, they fail. Why do resolutions fail? It's just the bar is too high. Once you break it, you're done. So I want to talk about ways that I have found to keep coming back and doing the important things. So this is from February 2018. I hope there's nothing embarrassing on there. I started getting myself checklists, and this was a checklist. I like this one because it had a lot of stars. You don't just buy gold stars, they come in all different colors. And as I did these things every week, that's my checklist down the column on the left, and that's the first Monday of every week in a row. And if I gave myself, if I went to the gym 3 times, you bet, I'm putting a star on my card. If I practiced the piano 20 minutes at a time, 6 times. I got to put a star on my card. And this was like in my daily notebook that I pulled out. And every day I'd look at it and be like, oh, shoot, I'm running out of week. I need to, that's when I was going to church. I would want to go to church 2 times. Leave in the morning at 7:30. No one knows what time I showed up to work. I could leave at any time, but it was like I was trying to discipline myself. Break some bad habits. We don't even need to talk about that. So this was a way for me to try to get the important things done. I would set goals. My rational self would set a goal. I want to learn how to play the piano, Marty. That's what I want to learn how to do. And then the other part of me, like there's 2 people in here. There's the Ernie and there's the Bert. And Bert wants to like learn how to do stuff and play the piano and go and make sure that I'm getting to the gym. And the Ernie inside of me doesn't really want to do any of those things. I would rather eat a bag of nacho chips on the couch and drink beer. Honestly, if I had my choice, that's probably what I would do. So there's always this negotiation between the two, and this is how I negotiated it. The Ernie in me likes getting gold stars. And I have given gold stars to other people. People would think this is the weirdest thing when I would pull out this card. It's like, what are you doing? I'm like, they thought it was really strange. But then I'd be like, have you ever gotten a gold star? When's the last time you got a gold star? And you give somebody a gold star, and as weird as it is, everybody smiles when they get a gold. I was looking to see if I had gold stars I could give you today. I couldn't find any, so I haven't done the stars in a while, but this really works. So set enjoyable goals, put them in a place where you can come back to them often. A lot of times we set goals for ourselves and we forget that we even made the goal after we struggled it. You make a New Year's resolution, you break it, you try again, you break it, and then by June you forgot that you even had made New Year's resolutions. So this is a way that it kept me coming back and putting it back in front of me to refresh me in that. I love, obviously, checklists. Every Saturday morning I get up, and maybe everybody does this, I make a checklist of all the things I'm going to do that weekend, if it's rake the yard, if it's do something on the deck, if it's whatever. And on Saturday night, I make sure it's a pleasure. I sit down and I'm like, oh yeah, got that one. Oh yeah, got that one. And then I'll think of 3 things that weren't even on the list, and I'll put them on the list, and then I'll check them off. It's such a pleasure, right? To be like, okay, And there's always things undone, but it's such a pleasure just to check off that list. So I totally recommend that. So those are a couple of ways to create and track your goals. Set enjoyable goals, write them down, refresh yourself in them, do some checklists, check them off when you get them done. And we all know that, I think, too. Like everybody knows that you can do this. The real problem, I think, that I have, and maybe other people have, is actually motivating myself to do some things that are harder than the effort I really feel like putting in that day. If it's not fun, it's hard to motivate. So I read this book called Willpower. I'm like, okay, what can you teach me about willpower? Willpower, if you have a lot of willpower, this talk probably doesn't even affect you because you can already pick what you want to do and you can go get it done. I am not a strong willpower person. I have to talk myself into just about everything that I do. Willpower is great. It makes you accountable to yourself. And if you're accountable to yourself, that's awesome. Whatever level of willpower you have, you can learn to have more willpower. There's some Army admiral guy out there, he's like, you should make your bed every morning. And I was like, well, why should you make your bed every morning, But I started doing that, and I realized that getting up every day and telling myself I have to do something and then doing it has trained me in some small way to listen to myself when I tell myself what I have to do. And I think that's how willpower can be used and affected. So you can strengthen your willpower if you don't have a ton of it. The best thing that I have discovered truly for getting things done, this is in the top 2, is, that's a next slide, having accountability partners. And everybody probably does this in some way, but I intentionally set out to have people help me become accountable for things. Because if I tell you I'm going to do something and you listen to that and then you ask me about that later, I am mortified that I'm going to embarrass myself in front of you by not doing it. So I think one great example of an accountability group I regularly engage in is the board of Sunday Assembly. Every time I go, I take on a bunch of tasks for the month, and then when we go to the next meeting, I have to, like the day before, I'm like, oh shit, what was I supposed to do? Because I don't want to go into that meeting and be the guy who's like, yeah, no, I didn't do that. Yeah, no, I didn't do that either. Yeah, I didn't do that either. Like, that is, like, that's humiliating for me. So I use my own humiliation, my sense of embarrassment, as keeps me motivated. I kept hearing people talk about how you should be, practice gratitude, keep a gratitude journal, be grateful every day. And many times I tried to be grateful every day, and I would forget that I was doing it. And I was like, oh, a month would go by, I was like, oh, I forgot I was grateful. And it just didn't work. So about 10 years ago, at my inflection point, really, I said to a friend of mine, hey, I want to text you 3 gratitudes every day this month. Would you just, if I don't, would you bug me about that? And as weird as that request, what hard as that was to make, my buddy was like, sure, I'll do that. And so about 10 years ago, that started an accountability to being grateful every day. And that's a discipline I've carried for over 10 years now. I still do that every day. I always have a gratitude partner, and if he doesn't hear from me, he lets me know, and if I don't hear from him, I let him know. I think accountability groups, any way you find them, even if it's just 2 people doing something, or if it's a group, like a success group, like business people do this all the time. They'll get together every week or every month and they'll talk about what their goals are. Did you accomplish your goals? I think that accountability groups for me, have been the most amazing way to change my habits and to help me rediscipline myself. And lastly, I do want to talk about, as a motivator for getting things done, besides using your own willpower and strengthen it, and besides using accountability partners to help you get things done, I have found that the amazing side benefit of a practice of gratitude is that it has changed my entire perspective on my life. What used to feel like a life full of complaint, and everybody's got complaints, I get plenty of complaints, but a complaint is essentially you finding a problem and being dejected because you can't do anything about it, and you're not going to do anything about it. And that is a very heavy energy, and the more complaints you have, the heavier that energy is, and it's very hard to think about your life in a positive way. I have found that gratitude is the antidote of complaining. I have found that instead of looking down and woe is me about my life, don't allow the woe is me about my life, it's really lifted my chin up and helped me to see what a wondrous existence that I have. Even when things don't look so good, it's amazing that I've had the existence I've had up until that point, and that I will have past that point. And it's really made me feel very fortunate for the life that I have. And I will say that just feeling fortunate and good about my life gives me a reason to get up every day and accept and face the challenges that I have before me. And I want to take care of future Marty, because I want him to be able to enjoy life like I'm enjoying it right now. And if there's anything from this little talk that I would share with you and want you to really take away, it's that practice of gratitude, especially with other people, with a partner, is amazing. Your relationships grow strong, like everything is just, it's been a life changer. I really would say that of all of the things that have helped me become satisfied in my life, it is a practice of gratitude. So, in conclusion, because that's about the end of things, I want to say that, you know, make sure you give yourself little rewards and little victories along whatever challenges you're trying to overcome in yourself or whatever improvements you're trying to make in your life. Don't set resolutions that are either broken or made. Like, just give yourself, you know, sometimes it's enough just to walk into the gym and be like, I was here today. I checked in. That's better than I did last week. I'm going home now. like, at least it's a step, you know? And people are, oh, that's lame. But you know what? It's baby steps. And appreciate that you're taking baby steps. I'd say do valuable things for your future self. Create some achievable, fun goals that are worthwhile goals. Use a checklist and check them off. And motivate yourself with willpower, if you're so blessed, with accountability, because that's even why I'm up here doing this. I said I would do it, and then I'm like, okay, I gotta do this thing. Like, I wanted to try this, and with gratitude. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. Hope you found that helpful. Okay.
All right. Awesome, Marty. Thank you. That's wonderful. Yeah, moment of wonder. Just like, yeah, that's good. All right, moment of wonder. Well, I have something a little scary to share. I went and saw the doctor the other day, and I've been diagnosed with sexual dimorphism. So, in science, it often helps to, I mean, we don't know Greek and Latin, right? Once you get into science, the sciences, you'll find that knowing a little Greek and Latin that you pick up from the words they use, not from trying to learn Greek and Latin, because that would suck, right? I don't know about you, right? Okay, so let's take this apart. Obviously, first part, sexual. It has something to do with sexual stuff. Okay, fine. Dimorphism. Two Greek and Latin, the two Greek terms here are di and morph. Di. Di means two. Yeah, some people already knew it. You've seen that in plenty of words, right? Di means two. Morph. Anybody want to guess what morph means?
Change.
Shape, exactly. That's exactly what it means. So, if we transmorph something, we change its shape. If we what would you call a drug that makes reality change shape? Morphine. So morph means shape. There's a ton of other ones. You'll see it next time one of these words comes up with morph. Oh yeah, right. Okay, so sexual dimorphism. That is a scientific term for, in biology, for a species where there's a sexual difference in shape. There's some difference in shape between the males and the females. Humans are sexually dimorphic. Males, on average, are a little taller, a little heavier, and a few other differences. One thing that I love about life is that despite my best efforts to learn everything, there's a lot of stuff I don't know. And regularly, I'll learn something and say, oh my gosh, I've lived 50-some years and I didn't know that, right? Wow, how could I not know that, right? Within the last few years, I've learned of a part of human sexual dimorphism that I was completely unaware of. I mean, if we ask people, you know, on average, are men taller? People say, oh yeah, right, we know that. How many people knew before they walked in here that humans are sexually dimorphic in finger length? How many people knew that? Okay. Wow, I was really surprised to learn that. Now, just like height, right, everyone looks at their hands, right? You're gonna be looking at your hands in a second when I explain this, I guarantee it. Just like height, it's not absolute, right? There's plenty of women that are taller than some men. As a shorter guy, I can tell you there's plenty of women that are taller than me, right? But on average, it's more often the case than not. And what we have here is the difference between you got your pointer finger, it's called the index finger, right? Pointer finger, index finger, and then you've got your ring finger, right? In males, if you look at my hand here, in males, the ring finger is usually longer and the pointer finger is usually shorter. In females, it's usually the other way around. Right. See, like I said, often, but not always, right? So if we take a look at that, and it's usually not a big difference. In males, the ring finger is longer than the pointer finger, and in females, the index finger is longer. Okay, now, okay, that would do it, right? That would do it for the moment of wonder. I don't know about you, I found that wonderful, but it goes a lot farther than that. The sexual dimorphism doesn't go any farther. But one of the things that's seemingly unrelated to this that I found incredible in my own life is learning about cave paintings, about our ancestors 40 or 50,000 years ago painting animals on caves. Awesome cave paintings in France and in Africa and everywhere around the world. Our ancestors have done this. And maybe it's just artistic expression, maybe there's other meanings, maybe it depends on the region, on this painting versus that painting, but to think of the time span, the pyramids were, maybe like around 4,000, 3,000 years ago, 4 or 3,000 years ago, the pyramids. This is 10 times farther back than that. And our ancestors were making these wonderful, wonderful cave paintings. And when we look at them, we learn some pretty incredible stuff. Oh, by the way, here's the breakdown. Male is blue, female's red in this chart. And you can see there's quite a bit of overlap. Plenty of people have the sexual dimorphism the other way, but just like height, on average, men have the shorter pointer or index finger. Okay, first wondrous thing about these cave paintings. It was only a few years ago when someone said, hey, why do we so often see these little dots or tick marks by the animals in the cave paintings? Then biologists said, okay, now see, this is the thing. In science, everything relates to everything else because it's all studying the real world. But we tend to compartmentalize, and when we do that, we miss things. And that's exactly what happened here. The archaeologists were taking care of all the cave paintings, the biologists hadn't seen them. But when the biologists and the archaeologists started talking, they said, hey, look at this. That happens to line up with the number of full moons, the number of months, between the spring equinox, when the sun rises exactly to the east, and when that animal happens to be going through this region. Again and again and again. They are planning the hunt. They're saying, when do we need to pay attention to get this animal? Planning the hunt. And this way predates other forms of human writing. Is this the first human writing? Probably. Who's planning the hunt? We very often see on these a spatter handprint, where someone takes the paint, puts it in their mouth, puts their hand up on the wall, and blows the paint on it. Very common. Maybe an artist's signature, right? Hold on a second. We know something about hands, don't we? Who is planning and directing the hunt? Most of the time, women. Most of the time, the women are planning the hunt, saying when we need to go out to hunt. And we saw from a previous moment of wonder that we're finding that a lot of the women were actually doing the hunting. And I mean, we talk about hunter-gatherers, the women were often out there hunting. Probably about 40% of the time, women hunting. And from these data, probably around 70% of the time, planning and directing when the hunting happens. Wow. With that, we'll move on to announcements.